Hello, this is Stephanie, and this is Talk Tales and Trivia, the show where I talk about culture, society, pop culture, with a dash of trivia, so that you can stump your family and friends. Listen here, I am a mad researcher when it comes to all those topics that I research, and that trivia that I give you, because you know what? I want you to be enlightened, to look intelligent, to look interesting, and to stump your family and friends all at the same time. It is so cool. Listen, on this episode, I am talking about something that is really cool and something that I came about by doing research on another episode for Talk Tales and Trivia, and it is a great one here. So sit back, relax, and listen and enjoy my tale about the Kowloon Walled City in Hong Kong. I hope that you enjoy it. Well, this is a fascinating episode and a fascinating city within Hong Kong that was lawless for decades. There are very few places on Earth that remain ungoverned, and even the tiniest islands and city-states tend to have rules in place for things like taxation and citizenship, right? We know that's true. Government control is an established reality for most of the world. But what would happen now, okay? What would happen if a neighborhood in your city suddenly became a lawless free-for-all? What type of industries would emerge? And how would people cooperate within that environment to ensure basic services continue to operate? One example from recent history sheds light on just how such a situation could work. The Kowloon Walled City, often described as one of the most remarkable social anomalies in recent history, this is a bizarre story. In Cantonese, it was known as the City of Darkness. But though it may have been a slum crawling with rats and dripping with sewage, it was stoutly defended to the last by those who lived there, as well as an unlikely ensemble of Chinese shopkeepers, faith healers, and, yes, self-taught dentists. It was denser than any other urban area on the face of the planet. The history of the Kowloon Walled City dates from the Sung Dynasty of 960 through 1297, when it began as a small fort to house the imperial soldiers who controlled the salt trade. In the second half of the 19th century, the Chinese were facing invasion by the British, who held Hong Kong Island hostage. So they expanded it into a proper garrison town containing soldiers, officials, and their families. It was in 1898, the 99-year lease of Kowloon and the new territories was established with one exception. What is that? Well, that is the Kowloon Walled Fortress. After World War II, squatters began to fill the site, and more prominent structures followed. By 1950, the population had grown to 17,000, and by 1990, over 50,000 people lived within the property, the size of 2 football fields. Well, cast aside as a military has-been, the city became untouchable by the Chinese and the UK governments. It became such a mess over time that neither government wanted to be involved with the walled city at all. But still, it grew. Its population increased dramatically following the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong during World War II. And because China never dropped its claim on the site and the British took a hands-off approach, the site became a sort of lawless enclave. The city was somewhat likened to a camp for anarchists. The living conditions were very poor, basic and substandard. It became smelly, damp, dangerous, dungeon-like, and cramped. Now, it had an average measure of about 40 square feet per person and was built without architects or engineers and absolutely no building or sanitation requirements. How could they do that? Well, it was because nobody cared. No government cared to even go near it. There were 500 buildings in all in a 6.5-acre area. The 500 buildings that were in the walled city could only be 14 floors high because of a needed airspace for planes going to the Kai Tak airport. The walled city were buildings that were at its simplest form, used as squatters' quarters. At its peak in population, it was ordinarily about $4.50 per month for one of the 2,100 family dwellings. Despite the squalid living conditions, it was a tight-knit community of people and many generations of families, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, that generally created a poor but happy place to live. It's unbelievable and hard to imagine, but yes, the Kowloon Walled City went through massive iterations throughout history and finally landed on being a place for the misfits, the mishaps, and the criminals in society. And because of the city being untouchable by any government, it always had high rates of prostitution, gambling, and drug abuse. But was there law and order within the Kowloon Walled City? Yes, kind of. Well, the triads acted as city council by resolving conflicts, creating a volunteer fire department, and organizing garbage disposal. The tight-knit community within the settlement would also coordinate among themselves to conserve electricity and make repairs to shared infrastructure. And amongst all the crime, anarchy, and squalor, it had its good side too. After all, there were children. There were schools and kindergartens run by organizations like the Salvation Army. Well, many authors, filmmakers, game designers, and visual artists have used the Kowloon Walled City to convey a sense of oppression, urbanization, or unfettered criminality. In the 1988 film Bloodsport, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Kowloon Walled City is a setting for a martial arts tournament. A walled neighborhood called The Narrows in the 2005 film Batman Begins was inspired by the Kowloon Walled City. And in literature, Robert Ludlum's novel The Bourne Supremacy uses the walled city as one of its settings. But regardless of the Kowloon Walled City being interesting, extremely fascinating, and kind of alarming all at the same time, in January of 1987, the Hong Kong government announced plans to demolish the walled city. After a very hard eviction process, demolition began in March of 1993 and was completed in April of 1994. Even as the tenants were leaving the walled city with no home to go to, these people made temporary camps on the perimeter of the city and stayed for a while. Well, now the Kowloon Walled City Park is what you'll see. It opened in December of 1995 and occupies the area of the former walled city. Some historical artifacts from the walled city, including its Yamen building and remnants of its southern gate, have been preserved in this park. There are so many people fascinated by the Kowloon Walled City that a 3-story arcade recreational center outside of Tokyo was built to recreate the Kowloon Walled City. That's right. From a Wall Street Journal video, I find that the Kowloon Walled City is a pop culture theme park. With months of research from the designers and architects regarding the theme park project, the devil is in the details, and even the garbage used was collected from Hong Kong for authenticity. Well, the theme park closed in December of 2019, and it will never be forgotten by those that got the chance to see it. Like a dystopian nightmare, the Kowloon Walled City is something that we will never see again in our lifetime. Hey, listen, if you've enjoyed this episode of Talk Tales and Trivia, that is so cool and great. You can get in touch with me, talktalesandtrivia@gmail.com. That's me. And you can go to talktalesandtrivia.com to listen to all of my past episodes, get to my social media links, and there's a little bio on me if you're wondering what I'm all about. And listen, if you've enjoyed Talk Tales and Trivia, I just know that you will enjoy my second podcast, Growing Uncomfortable. Go to growinguncomfortable.com to get to all of my episodes, my social media links, and that bio on me if you're wondering what I'm all about. And also, before I go, I do have a secret to tell you, except it's not much of a secret anymore. You can subscribe for free to Talk Tales and Trivia and Growing Uncomfortable. That just means you get the notifications of when new episodes come out, and I love that for you. Listen, I got to get out of here, but I will see you next time on Talk Tales and Trivia. Okay, bye-bye.